Finally get a rainy day. What's going on, guys? Sorry I haven't made a video in a long time. If you're new, please subscribe. If you've been here for a while, you know why I haven't made a video in a little while. I've been trying to start my own business and I've just been going at it ham all by myself, day after day, 6 to 7 days a week, and I really haven't had much time to do any of the work that I've wanted to do. Alright, welcome back. I'm getting back into this brushless build. I've been neglecting this thing. I've ordered so many parts for it. It is due for a build. I'm ready to get started. I haven't had much time to do anything that I've wanted to do, so we'll just go through all the parts I've got. This is a front axle, a metal front axle. I didn't order the full kit like I thought I did. It should have came with front and rear metal complete axle, but I guess I'm just going to run the plastic shaft on the end. I also have this motor mount, and this is in case I can't get the gear mesh quite right. If I can't figure out what I want to do with the way the transmission is going, I'm going to put this underneath the hood and mount the motor actually under the hood, maybe even be able to pop the hood. Also, I picked up some shocks. I do have the stock shocks. I painted them silver, but I bought these just in case I decide to go with these. I'm not sure what I'm going to do quite yet. I do want it a lowered stance. I want to pretty much be rubbing this. I'm thinking about chopping the axles a little bit to bring the wheels in. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that because it might limit the wheel steering ability. And also these wheels are really big. I've been trying to find smaller wheels with no luck. I also have this thing. This is a gyro GYC 300. I'm going to be putting that in. That's going to be helping me with my drifting because it's hard to drift with one hand. This is the stock transmission. If you're not familiar, this is what comes in it. And here are my wheels. I have some rubber wheels and some plastic wheels. Those are for maybe some high-speed runs if I can get it. Painted my door handles silver, the bumper, the steering components. This axle did not come with this kit. This is actually from, I thought it was an updated WPL, but it actually, I think it might be a competitor of WPL, JJRC. They make a truck that looks almost exactly the same as some of these WPL trucks. But I bought it because of this end cap right here. It pinches that axle together, and the original WPLs had an issue with that. So I ordered that, take it apart, grease it up, and do my little method of JB welding those plastic caps so they stay on there pretty well. Got my parts bin over there. So I've already painted this truck. I actually did the interior as well. I don't do super detailed interior. Some guys go super crazy with the brush and everything, but I mean, this is my hand over the truck. I mean, I'm seriously don't think anybody's going to beat me up over that. So I did paint the steering wheel, painted the seats, and I painted the floorboard, which has a kind of a diamond pattern on it, so it looked like a toolbox sort of, so I kind of painted it silver to match everything else, kind of like a toolbox usually is. Continuing with the silver theme, here's the transmission that I went with. Another single speed transmission. I have a plastic version of this in my blue monster truck. It has done great. It's lasted over a year. I haven't driven it too much, but oh well, it still has done very well. I've had this project going for quite some time. I've actually had this in the works for about maybe 2 months now, and it just took me a long time to get back to it. I ended up having to order a lot of extra parts that I wasn't intending on buying. Now I started to use this motor here, but what happened was I couldn't quite get it to line up with the bolts the way it needed to bolt into this transmission here, it just didn't line up very well. So I ordered a motor mount plate, so I was going to mount the motor underneath the hood until I decided to maybe give this a try. This is actually a bigger brushless motor, so I'm going to try to see if this lines up better with the transmission. Sorry, this is a 2430 CAN, not KV. It's a 7200 KV, and this is actually a 3800 KV. This is a 2845, which is a much bigger motor. You can check it next to this one. Much bigger motor. It isn't the biggest motor I've seen in the WPL, but it is a perfect combo for this brushless setup, I think. I think I said 2430 kV. That was definitely wrong. Yeah, I tried to get a 7200 because I thought it would be plenty of RPM just to turn it. And I did a test on it, and it just seems like it is just lackluster. It didn't have much power to it, and only can run it on 2S. So I decided why not just step it up and see how this works out. You have to forgive me, it's been so long since I've messed with this project that I forgot that the main reason that I swapped motors was this gear that comes with that transmission just is way too big for this right here, this drive shaft. So this shaft right here is much bigger. I believe that's the 3mm, and I'm gonna have to just either 2.5 or 3mm. I'm just gonna have to shave this out, drill it out, and it's gonna slide on there. Can't have it loose on this one, so I'm just gonna drill it out and make it fit that one. The shocks right here, you have to assemble them. This is just like the housing. I'm not sure if I'm going to go with those because I'm thinking about using those because it's an internal spring. You can chop the spring out and drop it down and it won't make a difference. These have an external spring, so it has to have pressure on that cup, otherwise the cup comes loose and the spring comes loose and it comes out. But I might be able to adjust how I attach those, but I'm still up in the air about how I'm going to actually build this truck. Alright, so I'm out here, I've got it in my vise, so I'm going to go ahead and drill this thing out. Like a glove. So that didn't fit just a second ago when I had drilled that all out. Alright, now we got to start on building this thing. Take it all apart. Got to put in the transmission. Then we're going to attach the electronics in here. Start building from there. So here's the interior. Not the best paint job. Went ahead and split everything apart. Using the bed as a parts bin again. So we'll go ahead and put the electronics in, then we'll go ahead and step to the suspension, then attach the axles, then we'll go from there. Alright, as per usual, my style, I ended up picking the most difficult thing to start with first, but I'm sure I'm going to run into more difficult things later. I ended up having to slot these motor mount holes out right here. I ended up sliding them out with the drill just a little bit. So once I slotted that out, I was able to slip this thing in there, get it all bolted up, and I left the other gears out so I was able to get to the grub screw on this gear here. I actually couldn't even use the motor mount design, the separate motor mount that I bought here, because I was actually looking at everything. I did see a couple of them that had an input shaft on them that was like a 3 shafts, and one of them was an input shaft that you could go ahead and attach a motor to. But I don't know how they did that because there's nowhere for that third shaft to house a bearing or anywhere for it to really mate up right in here. Also on the inside of here behind the gear right here, there's a big opening on the back side of this that would actually let the bearing fall out if you had even put a bearing in there. So I don't know how they did that. Maybe that's a special different transmission. But now that I got that out the way, I'm going to go ahead and bolt this casing back together and stick these gears in there. I bought these drive shafts just in case. These are the stock WPL drive shafts. I have the black ones over here, and I have these on another truck, but I couldn't find the grub screws that came with them. So I just went ahead and ordered an extra set just in case, and then I found the grub screws. Alright, so I went ahead and installed the transmission. All it was just these 6 Allen screws in there, and it kind of squeezes the transmission together. And then you just throw these 2 screws on each side. I actually had to drill a hole, if you see right there on the right, I actually scratched the paint. I had to drill a hole, I almost forgot about that. To mount this transmission, you need an extra hole on this backside. So the next step is the 4-link, which I have all my parts bin. These are all my 4 links. I'm not sure which suspension I'm going to go with yet, but let's start with these. If you haven't done this before, you got to pay attention. These 4 links are different links. You got to make sure you get the right ones. The short ones go on top, the long ones go on the bottom. These 4 links actually came completely disassembled. I had to put all of them together and I had to make sure they were the right links. Luckily, I had some that was previously made and I was able to match them up to the ones that came already pre-assembled for that truck. It also came with this little bolt kit. Some of them I've heard don't come with the bolt kit. Make sure you get it. Attach these trusses on here after that, and then you can either attach these directly to that and then bolt them onto the frame, or you can bolt these to the frame and then kind of put the axles in there. You flip the frame upside down and put the axles in. Just threw a little grease where the bearings go. Okay, I've had this issue before in a previous video, and I had the seller send me an extra axle. If you see, this is the previous axle I used, and I had an issue with the axles actually binding up. And I just installed the longer axle shaft, and I just am having too much trouble, too much binding up in this axle. I actually tried to trim it a little bit and everything, but it's just not working out. This axle is not a WPL upgrade. This is one of those cheap off brands that was selling straight from China. So I picked it up trying to save a few bucks, screwed myself, cost myself about $25 I think this thing cost, back when WPL was just jumping up and prices were up there pretty good. I also just realized that I totally jacked the front axle for this kit to rebuild that blue monster truck over there, because I destroyed that front axle. And I thought I would be okay because I had the metal axle, so I screwed myself. I'm going to put this in just temporary. I'm going to order a whole new axle. The build must go on. So let's try this again. Make sure you slip that in there before it gets too tight. And I just threw a little bit of grease in the end of the hub to kind of loosen it up. And this axle is much more free with this plastic in here instead of that axle that I did have in there. That thing was so tight. It was like the brakes were on. I'm going to go ahead and put the other side on now. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and attach my steering linkage. I usually put it on top of the post like this, but with this one, since it's a lowrider truck, I'm going to go ahead and put it on the bottom because it doesn't really matter. Alright, so I've taken this thing all apart. It doesn't seem much different from a WPL axle whatsoever. So I'm going to go ahead and pop these end caps off, throw a little bit of JB Weld on there so these don't slip. They can slip on the ends of these shafts. I did not do that to the front axle because I'm going to be replacing that. I'm not really concerned if it slips or whatnot. The gears in here, the gear mesh, that is the new gear set, so it is a little bit better, but those always have problems. It's just plastic gears, so I'm running it for a little while, but it's pretty much going to be replaced, so I'm not super worried about it. But this one, I'm going to slide these caps off, and you just put a little JB Weld on the end of the rod, and then you slip them back on. Then reassemble this with a little bit of lube, marine grease, there. And that'll be it.